I can go 5-6 days with no human interaction. It is so detrimental because self-isolation causes depression, loneliness. You don't have a sense of touch. You're not interacting with people intimately, meaning you're not in somebody's face. You're not, hey, John, here's a handshake, here's a hug. This is a problem, and a lot of people don't know. Once they self-isolate, they go down a rabbit hole of self-isolation, and it creates a problem. And by the time they figure out they have a problem, it might be too late for them.
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor, and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black executive perspective.
We are coming to you live from the new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit. So before we get started, new year, but guess what? We still want you to follow our partners. Don't forget to check them out, Code M Magazine, whose mission is saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. Check them out at codemmagazine.com. That is codemmagazine.com. So, one of the things when I was growing up, self-image was a big thing as being a kid. How people perceived me, how I thought of myself, how I thought the world saw me was huge. My mother was a big proponent in providing a lot of positive feedback to make sure that regardless of how I felt or what I thought, that I had a positive outlook in terms of my self-image and who I am. Well, unfortunately today, that's not the case. So I'm joined today by Brad Bowling, president of Code M Magazine, to discuss his thought-provoking article, The Looking Glass Self-Theory. We're going to examine its significance in our digitally driven and increasingly disconnected world. We're going to explore how self-image is influenced by others, the impact of social media, isolation, and the essential importance of human connection and self-kindness. Brad Bowling, my brother, welcome back to a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Mr. Franklin, how are you, sir? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, man. I'm doing well. Look, I have every year I'm no different. You probably do the same thing. We set goals because you're a very, a mission focused individual. You wouldn't be where you are if you didn't set goals. I always have certain words for the new year, right? Those words are the things that's supposed to remind me of what I'm trying to accomplish. So my logo, my phrase for 2025 is strive and thrive in 25. Okay. So that's what I'm that's what I'm going to do. But also I'm praying that all my friends and partners and everyone is able to thrive and strive in 25.
Let's go. Let's go. Mine is purpose and power, bro.
Oh, I love it.
So the purpose of the magazine is to highlight and showcase Black men doing incredible things. But the power comes from the nonprofit that we're launching in 2025. So we can touch people at a visceral local level. And so my goal this year is to live in purpose and power.
Buddy, I love it. Now, here's the thing, though. Not only do I love the words, I love the way you said it.
Yeah.
With conviction, right? With power, right? That's the thing. You speak it into existence.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I really love it. And guess what? I'm going to add that into my repertoire as well.
No, you can't take it. That's mine.
I'm not going to take it. I said add.
Right.
I said add, right?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I got my own words, right? Oh, it's all good, my brother. I'm not looking to take nothing from you.
I'm messing with you.
No, it's all good, man. So look, bro, one of the things that we did last year is, we had you come on a few times. Your magazine is awesome. Obviously, you're doing great things in the community. People enjoy it. But a lot of the articles, not a lot, but there's certain articles that you write that are off the script that really touch and talk about issues across the whole spectrum of human beings around the world, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of them. So I wanted to get just from you, man. Why did you want to come on and talk about this topic, the looking glass self-theory?
So, the pandemic brought a lot out of us that I don't think we knew we had. It was a lurking problem underneath the surface of who we are as people. But I think the pandemic exacerbated the problem. And so I wrote the article to kind of address self-isolation and how people don't realize how taking a step back from interacting with other people taking the conveniences that we think are helping life are actually making life worse for certain people. We wanted to bring that to people's attention. So if they do experience any issues with loneliness, depression, suicidal thoughts, this could be the culprit. And we wanted to kind of identify some solutions that they could use to overcome something that they might have unintentionally created for themselves. So I wanted to come on and talk about that today.
But yeah, I love it. I love it. And so I'm excited to dive into this. I've read it multiple times. It's very thought provoking. There's a lot here. So you ready to talk about it?
Let's go.
All right, man. Let's talk about it. So let's start off. You know me, man. One of the things I always want to do is start off the beginning, keep things simple, right? Because even I didn't know. So can you talk a little bit about what is the looking glass self theory?
The looking glass self theory was written or developed by Charles Wooden Horton in 1902, a sociologist who identified the humans' need to understand how we perceive ourselves. And so the looking glass self theory is the concept that you derive who you are based on how others perceive you to be. And I know that sounds a little complicated and it's wordy, but really we get our self-worth from how we perceive others feel about us, right? And so it's very important that we recognize how we perceive ourselves and how we use the world to perceive ourselves, because right now the world is conflicted. And so our self-perception is conflicted as well, especially with the invention of the internet.
Buddy, so true. You know, when I was reading this, obviously I was going back to my childhood because a lot of the things that you just got finished talking about is developed in your childhood, right?
Yes.
And it's a different world today. So I want to read an excerpt of your article. And then I want to dive into it further, right? So you write here, the looking glass self theory can affect self-esteem in either a negative or a positive way. For example, a person's self-esteem may increase if they continuously believe others perceive them in a positive manner. This has become a problem in modern society because there is so much fake information on the internet. The false information, coupled with a lack of human contact, can affect anyone who's vulnerable to public perception, as they might develop a negative attitude towards themselves. So talk a little. So, because here's the thing, I get the first part. Okay, as I kicked off the episode, let's be fair here. Growing up the way we grew up, it was all about social contact. And the way you perceived yourself is exactly how you thought people looked at you, right?
Correct.
How
Yes.
they interacted with you. Did they think you were handsome or ugly? Even though it may not be true what they thought. Okay, you could have been the most handsomest person, but if they're saying you're ugly, you would start to take that in, right? Vice
Yes.
versa, right?
Right.
And so if you were overweight or skinny or whatever, if you were strong or weak, I remember back in the day, and they used to have these comic books and magazines, and in every magazine they had the little article of the dude getting kicked sand in the beach. Remember?
Archie comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the dude would be laying there and this big dude come and kick sand in his face.
Right.
And then he'd be like, you little weakling. And then he goes and works out and he comes back. And then he beats the dude up and then takes his girl, right? But so that perception, right?
Yes.
I'm a weakling, this and that. Then I got to do something to get better. But now it's different because of social media. Speak to that a little bit, my brother.
It's different because, back when you and I were growing up, we got our information from the local news and then the people around us. So our self-perception was based on our daily interactions with people. We went out, we ventured out, you went to school, you went to practice, you went to work, you went to the playground, and you developed your self-awareness based on how others perceived you. And then, of course, how your social circle was around you. We were closer to family. We had parents around us. We had siblings around us. We had cousins around us. Well, today, you don't have to have that, right? So you're on social media. If somebody says something you don't like, you can delete them. Have you ever seen, the comments, hey, anybody that disagrees with my belief systems, I'm just going to unfriend them. Hey, if you're a Republican or Democrat and I don't like what you're saying, I'm going to delete you.
It's time to rethink your protein. Agilab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agilabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agilabs.com, promo code BEP.
So our self-awareness has become skewed because now you can go out and you can seek like-minded individuals. So now people don't have perspective, right? The problem with that is if you don't see a difference of opinion and you only see people who are around you. If I'm fat, I can go to a fat support group. Now I'm fat is okay. So, the problem with that is, and I know you're laughing, but you develop no coping skills, and you also don't develop a sense of awareness about yourself to improve yourself.
Right.
So now you're seeing people not have to go seek improvement. And so, there's so many problems with what we have right now as a society. One, because, you got DoorDash, you have Zoom, you have Grubhub. You don't have to go out and, internet banking. You literally don't have to leave your house if you don't want to. That lack of human interaction, the false information that's spread on the internet, whether it's true or false, tends to create the kind of personality that can get you in trouble and lead to loneliness, isolation, and suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
And so it's a big problem that we have to address, and that's what we're trying to do with the article.
No, that is, number one, you're correct. Number two is a shame. And then number three, just hearing the effects, because you're 100% right. One of the things I was thinking about as you were chatting is that when I was a kid, right, you hit it on the head. You're out, and a lot of who you are was not just shaped by your family, but shaped by your friends.
Yes.
A lot of things that you learned that you may have thought you knew, but you learned from your friends or they learned from you, right? And then not only that, the only perception in terms of what we would call beauty or success or failure would be what we saw with individuals, with human beings, actual people. Very rarely we would take what we saw in a magazine or something of that nature and say, oh, I want to be this. Well, today with social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you can name it, you have images of people that there's no imperfections.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have people who, and this drives me crazy because I've seen it a million times. I've even chatted with people who, when you talk to them one-on-one, they're telling you they're having problems with their significant other, right? And they don't know if they're going to make it. And then the next day, you look on social media and there's a picture of them and the other person saying, the love of my life. I wouldn't know if I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this person, right?
Everybody help me wish my boo happy birthday.
And they're putting out a perception that's not real based on what they've said, right? But they want people to think it's real. Here's the other thing. I want to read this because this is also a key. In your article, it says, the looking glass theory can hugely impact children. Children develop a perception of self through interactions with other people, what we just got finished talking about. Children will often take the feedback that they got from others to develop their own concept of self. This fragile stage in development has typically protected the positive reinforcement of the parents.
Yes.
However, the children gaining access to social media earlier and earlier in life, they are susceptible to developing negative feelings about themselves before they're able to differentiate between their sense of self and other people's possible perceptions of them.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about that, my brother.
So, our children are vulnerable because the internet is so powerful today, right? And so experts, there's a debate on how soon you should let your child onto the internet because their access to information, their access to content can sharply, determine how they perceive themselves based on the internet. Usually we used to get social acceptance through interpersonal communication. Now people take a look at how many likes they get, and that helps them determine how they perceive themselves. So it's important for our children to develop a sense of awareness, self-awareness first before they get on the internet, because once they get on the internet, it's very difficult to control what they take in when they're by themselves, right? So, you're with your phone, it's at nighttime, you should be in bed, but you're scrolling. A lot of your contact with the outside world, the information comes from the news, comes from the internet, going viral information, the TikToks, all the different apps. And so it's very important that you slow your child's access to the internet down as much as possible, so then you can help them develop a sense of awareness. Because listen, Tony, once they hit 10, 11 years old, it might be too late. They might have already decided who they are. And that is so young to put that kind of pressure on a child. They haven't had a chance to succeed, to fail, to know who they are, to know who they want to be. They haven't been given time to experiment. Do I play football? Do I play the violin? Do I go for acting? Do I want to be an engineer? They don't have the time to develop a sense of awareness anymore.
Right.
And so it's very, very important that you delay your child's introduction into the internet for as long as possible.
I think the other thing, though, too, is that they're not able to develop a sense of what failure is. Okay. So in other words, a world has been created that everybody wins. Okay. A world has been created that everybody gets a trophy. A world has been created that, and I don't want to say you don't have to do your best, but whatever you do is good enough. Okay.
Right.
And at the end of the day, as growing up with our friends and, we learned the difference between, you dealt with failure all the time. Playing football in the streets, okay? That was your Super Bowl. Playing baseball, being in class, and the teacher says, "What's this?" and blah, blah, blah. But if you live in a world where everything is coming to you and there's no antithesis of that, right? There's no feedback saying this is not right. Right. So it's hard to develop in terms of, you only think of one way, and if this way doesn't work, then I'm no good, because that's the only thing that you interact with when it comes to social media. Let me ask you this. When it comes to, is there any data that has, in terms of backing up the looking glass theory, in terms of how children used to be prior to 2000s, and then how they're now when it comes to self-esteem, and how they're now when they look at their self-esteem in this digitally driven society?
Absolutely. And so, there was just a report, and I don't want to say this is recent. I think this might have came out either last year or the year before. But the number one health risk for children under 16, especially girls, is the internet. It is more the internet is one of the most harmful things to the development for a young female, for all kids, by the way, but specifically young females, because they get a sense of self based on the internet, beauty, how they should behave, what should they wear, what should they be listening to. Unfortunately, I have two daughters, and, women are so hard on each other, not as hard as men are. Men tend to develop hierarchies in their social circles. If you walk into a room of men, we're instantly sizing each other up and down.
Correct,
so you
correct.
quickly find out who's the leader, who's the worker, who should be at the bottom, who should be in the middle. A lot of times men will self-identify what roles they have. Hey, I'm going to work on the wood. You go over here. You cut this. I'm going to build. So men tend to find out through their social circles, the hierarchy, and we trust that hierarchy. Hey,
Right.
You know what? I acknowledge that you might be smarter than me. You might be stronger than me. I'm okay with that. It doesn't make me less. It makes me different, but it doesn't make me less. With young ladies, there's combativeness, right? So, when young boys play video games or they play football or whatever, you get an idea of who's good at what, and then you work on those traits. You also, you can take criticism. Hey, I need to work on my throwing. I need to work on dribbling. I may need to work on my right hand because I'm dominant left hand playing basketball. Girls, when they play games, they don't tend to look at that and say, okay, here's a leader, here's the follower, here's the winner, here's the loser. If you take a look at girls, it's playing doll. It's playing house. So there's no social development in that. A lot of times, if you have disagreements with females, they just stop playing the game. Men, we tend to say, okay, well, let's figure out what the solution is to this and let's continue. And so girls struggle with the internet more than boys. And so the data is out there to support that the internet is detrimental to young females.
Wow. Let me ask you this, and look, we went to the children, right? Which makes total sense because they're the ones, they're growing up in a world, and this is all, especially a digitally driven world, this is all they know, right? However, talk a little bit about the adults though, right? That grew up like we grew up, all right? That have self-isolated, that have used the looking glass theory is they have a negative connotation about themselves too, based on social media.
Well, again, the pandemic has created such a vicious cycle of problems for us as Americans and just humans in general. Before the pandemic, I think people ventured out, they went around, they felt safe, they experimented in social settings. The world was just different. Now, post-pandemic, the world is so different. You have Zooms. People are going to the office less. Remember, when you went to the office, you interacted. Now, we could all complain about that Monday meeting where the manager talked about her 2 kids that we hated. You know what I mean? Remember those Monday morning meetings where it's like, I got to sit here and go over my sales projections again in front of 20 other people for 2 hours.
And I just told you that on Friday.
Yeah. And I just told you that on Friday.
Right.
John, what are you doing the next quarter? But the thing that we actually loved about that is you came into the office, you fought traffic, you got coffee. Your teammates were in the same room. You touched people, you hugged people, you joked. You laughed with your coworkers. Man, people miss that now. Now everything is on Zoom. And so now we're starting to come back. And so it's being taken care of slowly. But a lot of people now have self-isolated, Tony, where they're like, you know what? I'm in a business now where my job is in Texas. I live in Ohio. I don't have to go to the office, so I can log in. I'm on a computer all day. I log off. Well, it's kind of cold up here in Northeast. I get the DoorDash. I get Grubhub. My money goes into the bank deposited. I can shop on Amazon. All my boxes come to me. I can go 5-6 days with no human interaction. It is so detrimental because self-isolation causes depression, loneliness. You don't have a sense of touch. You're not interacting with people intimately, meaning you're not in somebody's face. You're not, hey, John, here's a handshake. Here's a hug. This is a problem. And a lot of people don't know. Once they self-isolate, they go down a rabbit hole of self-isolation and it creates a problem. And by the time they figure out they have a problem, it might be too late for them.
Right.
So, it's a growing problem across the country.
One of the things, all the things you were talking about in terms of post-pandemic, Grubhub,
Right.
Being able to work from home, all those things that technology has allowed us, Zoom, all those things, right?
Right.
And so obviously you can also say, well, look, to be honest, those things are also a convenience, right? Because people were, wearing themselves out, to be fair, commuting a long period of time. All the other negative things that go along with it, right? People were going to work and felt like I don't need somebody, having me come in here. It's just like being my babysitter, right? You got to see me work before you believe that. Mm-hmm. So, there was also that. However, one of the things I wanted to bring up here, I think it was a few years ago, I saw something, National Geographic ID or whatever. It was about Antarctica. And that they had put people on they were using Antarctica as a preamble to go into Mars.
I remember that. Yep.
And they wanted to, and why did they use our Antarctica? There's nothing there. All right. So at the end of the day, they put humans there and wanted to see how they could interact with no human connectivity, with no social connectivity, because now you're isolated. Okay. And one of the things that's very important is having human touch, is being able to speak to someone. So if you can't do that, And then now we're going to put you in a rocket ship that's going to take you 7 months to get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to be on a planet all by yourself. What would happen to human beings if that happened, right?
Correct.
And obviously, there's only a few people that can do that. So one of the things that you wrote in your article was about touch starvation, okay? About now, as being physical human beings and touch, now people are not doing that. So talk a little bit of what touch starvation is and how it affects individuals.
So touch starvation is the lack of touch that humans either seek or have on a daily basis, weekly basis, or throughout their lives. And so we wanted to include touch starvation in the article about Looking Glass Cell Theory because it's a part of it. The skin is the largest organ on your body, and the skin sends receptors to the brain. So touch is a huge how can I put it, motivating or touch is taken so much into consideration in how you perceive yourself, right? If you get a lot of touch, you feel better about yourself. If you don't have a lot of touch, that touch starvation creates a sense of lack of self. Yes, go ahead.
So real quick question though, I just want to be clear. When you say you get a lot of touch, what do you mean by a lot of touch? Is it a hug, a handshake? What do you mean?
Yes,
Pat
I
on the
mean,
back.
absolutely. If you take a look at, for instance, in New York City, right? New York City, the people in New York City, they don't have cars. They're all walking. They're on the subway. Their touch is even incidental.
Got it.
You're walking. You're talking to people. Your interactions. It's all healthy because you have, you get feedback. Your body is getting touched.
As being a physical human being, right?
Correct, as being a physical human being. And so lack of touch also creates a problem, right? So you get positive endorphins when you have touch. The receptors in your body tell you, okay, I'm getting positive feedback. And this is helping me understand who I am. I'm happier when I have human interaction and I have touch. And so one of the ways we talked about a lack of touch is if you're not around family, you're not around friends. If you take a look at American society, we have less marriage. We're having less children. We're seeing each other less. And I think we talked about this on our other podcast, when you used to be around family and friends, when you went to social events, when you went to family functions, you would hug cousins, you would talk to people. Even at work, shaking a hand, putting your arm around a coworker, congratulating each other, sporting events, attending sporting events, the jumping up and down, the high fives. You'd be surprised how much you touch other people if you're venturing out in your daily life. And so that's all important to human development and maintaining a positive sense of self. So touch starvation, we see it in children in orphanages, and we also see it in older people. When they don't have a sense of touch, they become lonely, depressed. They develop stress, anxiety. That anxiety leads to, suicidal tendencies and thoughts. And so we highlighted, if you are seeing family members, if you're seeing friends who are kind of disappearing a little bit, you're not hearing from them a lot, that you seek these people out. Tony, I used to sell life insurance back a lifetime ago. And I would go into homes and I would, give older people insurance. And you would walk into the house and, you would see the grandmother there. She's not getting visited by anybody. She's got 3 cats. The walls are soft. It's damp in there. It's dark. And she's touch deprived. Her social interaction is so limited that she's depressed. She's fatigued. She's tired. And just being around other people, man, having healthy conversations, even if they're surface conversations, I can't tell you how much this helps people in their daily lives. You see it a lot of people who retire, right? They retire, they lose their sense of purpose. And the next thing you know, their life expectancy is reduced drastically because their lifestyle changes so much.
What's interesting is that, number one, this is very educational. Number two, never thought about how physical touch is so important in part of us, and from a self-esteem standpoint, from a social standpoint, right?
Right.
talk a little bit of how it affects from a mental health standpoint. You know, one of the things that when we think of mental health, we think somebody's going down a rabbit hole because they're mentally off, or they're crazy, or talk about how touch starvation can affect mental health.
So, your mental health, man, right now, mental health is one of the most important topics that we can discuss as Americans, as Black people, because it's so critical to our development and our sense of our identity and our sense of self right now, right? So if you don't have touch, you're not getting any visceral feedback from society. So you don't really, you start to lose your own self identity. And then, depending on how you perceive yourself already, it can exacerbate the problem. So, think about the what comes with building stress, the hormones that are released when you have high stress levels. Well, a lack of touch exacerbates that. When you do have touch, you get positive endorphins. You get a positive reinforcement that, okay, I'm a good person. I'm liked. Let me reciprocate that, which then only solidifies that thought, right? So you're touched, so now you reciprocate that behavior. Well, guess what? It goes the same way when you don't have touch. Well, if I'm not being touched, I'm not reciprocating touch. So it's an ugly rabbit hole that you go down when you don't have positive interactions with people. This is why we recommend joining a social club, going to seek out family and friends. If you find yourself not being around a lot of people, you got to get out the house. You got to find different ways to get out, talk to people, seek touch, whether, massage, going to visit family, man. It's very, very critical to your self-care that you have positive interactions with people.
Does this have anything to do in terms of different type of personality types, right? Because one of the things, and let's just go back, let's back up a little bit. When we talked about all the convenience that technology has allowed us to be able to order food, work from home, all these things that we can be able to do, right?
Right.
However, for myself, I'm a touchy-feely person. Okay. So I need to be around people, right? Don't get me wrong. There's times I want to be by myself and this and that. But if I don't have people around me, I don't have the energy. I don't feel it's important. I'm a hugger. All the things that we got finished talking about. But then there's other people that they're just not that way. Right. So does personality affect this one way or the other?
I think it does. And a lot can be said for an introvert versus an extrovert, right? I'm the same way. I love talking to people. I'm a touchy-feely person. Touch is my love language.
It's
right?
my love language as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So, for me, I thrive in it. I desire it. I initiate it. And so for me, it's important. Now, I have 2 kids that are introverts. And I used to always, hey, get out there and do this and do that. And they are like that. I'm good. And what I've noticed as they become adults is you kind of have to let them do them.
Right.
And they're okay. So I have 4 kids, right? So 2 of my kids are outgoing. 2 of my kids are pretty quiet and they're reserved. And so what I've noticed is that you tend to, if you're introvert, you're okay having 1, 2 friends. You don't need a whole lot and you're okay with that. So yes, I think personality types definitely play a factor in this. And if you're the kind of person that doesn't require a lot of social interaction and you're okay, I'm happy for you. My concern is the people where they may need it and they're not seeking it. And then that creates either a state of depression or they go down the rabbit hole of even a higher degree of self-isolation. And then they become mentally unhealthy behind it.
Right.
So, yeah.
So let me, one of the things, when I was a kid, and your parents probably taught you the same thing, eating vegetables is good for you. Right?
Yeah, right.
Right. And at the end of the day, they were right. But you were like, this is nasty. I don't want to eat it. Mm-hmm. How much of this is people just don't know? Because again, this has been around 1902, I think it was.
Since 1902.
Since 1992,
Correct. Right.
And I read it and I was like, I never heard of it before. It all makes sense, but I've never heard of it before. I didn't even, like I said, even the Antarctica thing, I was like, wow, I never even thought of that. People being by themselves and they couldn't stand being by themselves. I never saw that. So how much of this is that people are just not aware? They're thinking, hey, me being by myself is a good thing. Me not touching somebody because I don't know what they got, that's a good thing, right? Me, not having to deal with people's BS or their issues or them not liking me or making up stuff or whatever, it's a good thing, right? But what I'm hearing is they're creating their own cave that they now is affecting them. So how much of it is that a lack of awareness?
Well, excuse me. Man, you just said a lot there. So I'm trying to figure out.
No, my brother, take your time.
I'm trying to figure out how to break that down, because the way that I wrote the article, I wanted to make people aware. If you're self-isolating, I need you to be cognizant of the ramification of self-isolation.
Got it.
Right? But at the same time, there are people out there who are introverts, who are comfortable, totally comfortable not being around other people. But
they may not know that this can help them go down a rabbit hole.
Listen, why am I not sleeping?
There we go. Yeah.
Why did I lose my appetite?
Why am I cranky?
Why am I cranky? What is going on? I used to be a much nicer person. Now I've become more intolerable of other people. Well, we used to be tolerant of other people's opinions. I remember I used to look at other people, Fox News. Remember, sometimes I go look at Fox. I just need to know what they're thinking, bro.
I used to watch, what was my man? He died. The dude that used to be the staple of Fox. I used to listen to his program every day. I forget his name. He went on ESPN for a minute and then it blew up. But whatever, we can get to it. But
yes.
To your point, Rush Limbaugh. I used to listen to his show, okay?
Yes.
All the time. I used to listen to a bunch of people's shows. I'm like, I can't believe they said that or whatever the case may be. But I would listen because sometimes they would say stuff that I was like, that's a good point. But finish your thought.
Yeah. So, you used to listen to the opposing side's thoughts.
All the time.
And we could agree to disagree. Then we still went and we went to the ball game. And you have friends of a different opinion and a different background.
Exactly.
Now, again, bro, if somebody's saying something that you don't like, I'm unfriending you.
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
Yeah, but we've been friends since third grade. Yeah, but you like green and I like red, and so we can't be. So, now all of this like-minded stuff is creating a perception that I'm right. And if you're wrong, I don't have to listen to you and I don't need to be around you. This is why we have so much red and blue in our country now, right?
Right.
So we've got to make sure that we are tolerant of other people's thoughts, that we're respectful of other people's opinions. And it doesn't mean they're bad.
No.
They're still an American. They still love their kids. They're still people. So the thing that I wanted to do in making people aware about the looking glass self theory is you want to be careful how you treat yourself. Because I think, Tony, post-pandemic, I don't know if we're kind to ourselves, let alone other people. You see a lot of stuff when you take a look at the social media memes and some of the scrolling that you do, and you say, man, people are so mean out here. That's kind of the theme right now of America in 2024 going into 25 is America's not as nice as it used to be. But I don't know if we're as nice to ourselves as we used to be. I don't think we're treating ourselves well anymore. We're not working out like we should. We're eating bad foods. I'm going to tell you, man, that's a whole nother podcast is the food that we're eating. On top of it, so hey, you're getting the DoorDash, you're getting processed food, you're not seeing anybody.
Killing yourself.
You look at the same videos over and over and over, and they're videos that you chose, so the algorithm is throwing you more junk at yourself that you're taking in, and now you think the world is this, and the world really isn't.
Right.
How much is, so let's put a pin in just what you said, right? How much is, you
isolating. Let's back up. You said how we're not loving, and I'm going to paraphrase.
Yes, sir.
We're not loving ourselves enough like we used to, right? How much of that is based on pandemic, is based on isolation? Because you're right. Everybody, what's that somebody taught me this years ago. They said, happiness is not a noun. It's not a person, place, or thing.
Okay.
Okay. So in other words, you don't become happy because you got a new house. You don't become happy because you got a new mate. All right. You're not happy because you went to Rome, right? You got to be happy first within, right? It's a always ongoing thing. It's a verb.
Right.
It's not a noun. That means I don't become happy because a noun is a person, place, or thing, right? How much of what's going on today of people not loving themselves and stuff to that nature has to do with the looking glass theory?
Well, I think it's not necessarily because of looking glass theory, but we're using.
Does it play a factor?
It definitely plays a factor because we determine our own self-value based on so many external factors. How many likes you get? How many dates do I go on? Look at the dating apps. The dating apps are designed to make you never get a date, but success supposedly is finding a date, right?
Right.
So if you take it, just let's use dating apps as an example. I think the statistics say that a man may have to scroll over 1,000 times and swipe right 1,000 times to get one match, one feedback from a female. Do you understand how devastating and stressful that is to be a man on a dating app and you have to like or try to match with over 1,000 women before you get one single female to say, "Hey, I like you too"? Do you understand? Well, you understand what that does to your psyche, to your self-confidence, to your self-perception? If you're already kind of, maybe I'm a beta, maybe I'm not as tall as I want to be. Okay, well, I'm not working out like I should. Maybe I'm not making what I need to make. And with inflation and how hard life is and how hard we are on ourselves. And then when you have social media and all the fakeness, hey, he's got 13 gold chains. He's driving a Porsche. And you read, this athlete got an $800 million 4-year contract. And you're going, Jesus Christ, I suck as a human being. I'm failing miserably because I can't even get a date. Yeah. I got a 2% raise, which took me to 40K, right? I'm not doing sit-ups like I'm supposed to.
Inflation went up 10%. So
yeah,
I'm
bro.
points behind.
Yeah, right. And so, it is so self-inflicting right now. That's my problem with what's going on with American society is that, we've kind of become an own victim to our own behaviors. Right. And
Sure.
that's the reason we wrote the article is we wanted people to kind of wake up, realize, hey, I might be in this and I'm not aware of it. Because when you go to the doctor, they don't treat the cause, they treat the symptom. And we wanted people to be aware of the cause.
That is an excellent point. Now, what can people do? Hey, I didn't know this. I'm listening to a Black Executive Perspective podcast. I went on Code M. I read the article.
Right.
This could be me, right? So what can they do to build a healthier self-esteem? What's your thoughts?
So if you take a look at American society right now, right, you have more single people than ever. You have more divorced people than ever. And so, a lot of times people say, well, I'm not going out. There's not a lot of places to go. That's just not true. There are so many social organizations that are doing things that you're interested in. Gardening clubs, book clubs, workout clubs. There are travel clubs. There are so many painting clubs. You still have the social organizations, NAACP, Urban League, ACLU. There's so many things that you can go do to throw yourself back into being socially not accepted, but being around people. You start there with social interests like yours, where now you're developing friendships, you're developing commonality with other people. That jumpstarts your ability to get out the house. Now you have somewhere to go. The meetings are every Wednesday night at 7:00. So you're in front of people, right? Get off the Zoom, go back to the office. If you have an opportunity where the office is saying, come on back in, Go back in. Go back in, Tony. It's so important. Because guess what? Remember, you're going to the cafeteria for lunch. You're going across the street at the cafe for lunch. Now the waitress that you used to know, you know again. The guy that sat at table 2, your table 1, that you used to talk to from across the room, you're talking to him again. Go golfing. Go join the volleyball club. There are soccer clubs out there. There are walking clubs, right? Remember, you used to go to the mall, you see the old people walking, and they went to the McDonald's and they sat there and they talked. We still need that.
Right.
It gave people a sense of purpose and identity and commonality. And you talk to people with different backgrounds, and you got a chance to see and socially interact. Man, we've got to get back to that.
So the reason I was laughing, because obviously the things that you were saying is true, right? But if I'm, like I said, if I'm on the other side of it, I'm like, none of that. You might as well tell me to eat vegetables again. None of that sounds attracting to me. So number one, your point of the article makes so much sense, right? To make people aware. What could they do from a baby step standpoint, right? Because all those things that you just got finished saying, and look, let's break it up. Maybe there are extroverts as well as introverts, but let's just look at it from a personality standpoint.
Right.
For whatever reason, some people just don't want to at this moment, for however they got there in terms of interaction, and didn't know that this is a detriment. This can affect them from a mental health standpoint, all the self-esteem, the whole 9 yards, right? What's little steps? Because all those other things have been offered to them a million times. They're probably aware of them, right? And they still don't want to do it. What little steps could they take that can get them back on that little treadmill? Or it may not be as big as joining a golf club or those type things, but it's still giving them that physical touch, still giving them that interaction with human beings outside of social media.
Let me attack this from the other side for a second, if you will.
Yeah, please.
I want to throw a challenge out there, because we all know somebody in our lives who we don't talk to as much as we used to. Somehow the relationship's fallen off. You don't see them as much as you used to. You don't talk to them as much as you used to. I'm challenging people that if you don't have a problem in your social surroundings or social circles, to reach out to that person, right? Sometimes in order to have good friends, you have to be a good friend.
There we go.
So maybe we attack this from the other side and we say, okay, you know what? If I see that Bob is not calling me like he used to, let me reach out to him. Let me be the catalyst to him getting back. Because sometimes throwing that lifeline is all they need.
Right.
Because I'm only saying this, Tony, because you're right. Bob already knows that all of that stuff is available to him.
Right.
He's choosing not to engage. Right.
Correct.
Well, Bob needs his friend to call him and say, you know what, Bob? Hey, man, I'm coming over.
Right.
Well, no, I didn't clean up. No, I don't care about that. I'll see you Tuesday at 3:00.
Or just show up.
Just show up. Bob, I'm knocking on the door. I know you home. I'm coming in, right? So I think that we have to save each other. Bob doesn't know that he's self-isolating. And even if this article tells him he is, he may not have the confidence or the desire to pick himself up by his bootstraps, because guess what? Depression set in.
Exactly.
He's so used to self-isolating. I just was talking to somebody who, they said they wanted to work out for 2025. So, hey, guess what? Yesterday, they got up and went to the gym. This morning, I called him. He said, Brad, it's snow on the ground. I'm not going. It's a dusting of snow, and they decided they're not going. I'm like, you got to go. You got to go, because guess what? Once you get there, you're going to find out, man, my body feels so good. I mentally feel so good. I put myself through so much agony to go to the gym, and guess as soon as you got there, the first 3 steps on the treadmill, you're kicking yourself going, dang, I cannot believe I just went through all of that, and I'm so happy that I came. You know what I mean? How when you get done, you're in the shower, you're like, dude, I feel like $1 million because I worked out.
Exactly.
Well,
and that's it. Go ahead, finish, buddy.
I just told him, I'm hanging up. You're going to the gym. Call me when you come back. And he said, damn it, Brad. Oh, I didn't mean to cuss. He said, darn it, Brad. I appreciate you calling me. I appreciate you kicking my butt. I'm going. And so sometimes we have to be that for each other, Tony.
Buddy, you're 100% right. And those little steps matter, right? Because even with that one-on-one, going over to Bob's house, Bob is now having social interaction with another human being. Bob, now you shake Bob's hand or you give Bob a hug. Now he's having physical touch, right? Now you guys are talking about what's going on in the world, and you guys may agree, disagree, but there's some now, we're having some verbiage together. His brain is being stimulated.
Right. And Bob finds out that it's not as bad as he thought.
It's not as bad as he thought, right? So those little bitty things can be big things, right? Versus Bob doing all the other things. So I really appreciate you breaking that down. And I love the way you came about it from the other side, right? Because, and I remember, man, when we talked about it in my last episode when my son passed away.
Yes, sir.
Right. And if you remember, well, you wouldn't remember, but obviously you probably had people pass away in your family. But when that happens, people self-isolate. They don't want to be around nobody.
Yeah.
They don't want, blah, 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 blah. And I remember, I never forget it. I just wanted to be in a hole. I just wanted to stay home. I didn't want to talk to nobody. People were reaching out to me. I didn't want anything. Then the doorbell rang and I went to the door and there was my best friends. They just showed up. They came, right? And for that moment, for that hour or two that they were in the house, and prior to them coming, I was totally against chatting with anybody. But that hour or two, what they was there, it took my mind off things. It was better. I felt so much better at that, just like you talk about when you went to the gym.
Right.
All right. All those things, but they just showed up. And it was one of the most important things to help me move forward. Right. So it was a small gesture. They didn't call, because had they called, I would have said,
you would have said no.
Exactly. Don't come.
Right.
They showed up. So those things are important. Brad Boland, final thoughts, my man. What do you want to leave the audience?
Tony, I love life. Life is best lived when you're living. Push the envelope. Live life to the fullest. If God lets you wake up today, you are to get the most out of your day. Right. And so we wrote the article as a reminder and as a guide to people to take care of yourself, better care of yourself. And so, I just want people to get everything they're supposed to get. You don't have to have all the money in the world. You don't have to look the best. You don't have to be the brightest. You don't have to have the best career, but you can have purpose and meaning. You have to go out and create it. And so we wrote the article to remind people, love yourself, love those around you. Hear the warning signs. So if you're kind of dealing with some self-isolation, if you're not getting as much touch as you need, here's what you can do to create it, to jumpstart it, and to kind of get back to enjoying life like we used to. I think it's so difficult right now, post-pandemic, to find purpose, to find intention, to find intentionality. And a lot of times, it all starts with one article. It can start with one phone call. It can start with one handshake, bro. And so hopefully that handshake, the article was a handshake to somebody out there to say, hey, we love you. And we hope you love yourself.
Buddy, number one, I love you.
I appreciate it. I love you too, bro.
For you to write this, and again, a lot of the articles you write is all about love, because you're educating people on things that they may not be aware of, right? And so this was great, and you're 100% right. We, number one, have to love ourselves first, okay? And we have to take care of ourselves first, because guess what? There's nobody else going to take care of you better than you, right?
Exactly.
So I want to thank you for coming on. And back up. Let's back up a second. What's your words for 2025? Say it again.
Purpose and power, baby. Purpose and power.
And look, buddy, I give it to you. You came on the show and you provided purpose and power with this article that you wrote. And I know this for a fact. All right. I know this for a fact. When somebody reads that article or listens or watch this podcast, it's going to help a ton of people. So I want to thank you, number one, for having the thought process of thinking of other people and putting something together that 99% of us have no clue of what it is, even though we're dealing with it. That shows how much love you have for your fellow man. So I really appreciate it. And then also coming on a Black Executive Perspective podcast to share it, provide more in-depth thought process behind it, So Brad Boland, president of Codem Magazine, I love you a lot. Thanks for attending, my brother.
I love you too, so. And let me just say, I thank you for allowing us to come on to talk about this. Because, having it be in print and online is one thing, but then bringing it to life, talking to you about it, it makes it so much more impactful. And so I thank you for allowing me to come on to talk, brother. I'm so proud of you, what you're doing, your show, the award that you got, just being 1 year old, bro. Keep kicking life in the butt, keep getting it done, and I will see you around the corner.
Thank you, buddy. We're going to thrive. We're going to strive and thrive.
That's right, baby. All right.
All right. You stay right there because you're going to help us with our call to action. So I think it's now time for
Tony's Tidbit.
So the tidbit today, your self-worth isn't defined by likes or follows, but by the love and compassion you show to yourself. True confidence comes from understanding that your value isn't dictated by others' judgments, but by your own self-acceptance. And you heard a lot of that and more from our guest, Brad Boland, president of Codem Magazine. So real quick reminder, please don't forget to check out every Thursday, Need to Know by Dr. Nasinga Burton on the Black Executive Perspective podcast. Dr. Burton dives into the timely and crucial topics that you need to be a part of and listen to and learn from that shape our community and world. Tune in to gain the insight and deepen your understanding of the issues that matter that you may not be aware of, just like the self-looking glass theory. You don't want to miss it every Thursday on a Black Executive Perspective podcast. So now it's time for our BEP's call to action. Our goal is to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And to achieve this, we're asking everyone to embrace our call to action, our word, less, L-E-S-S. Brad Boland, kick us off, my brother.
So the first L is learn. Educate yourself on racial and cultural nuances.
Exactly. Then after you learn, you have the letter E, which stands for empathy, right? So now you've learned, now you've understand other people's perspective. You put yourself in their shoes. So now you know exactly what your friends and colleagues are going through.
The first S is share. Share your insights to enlighten others.
Absolutely. And then once you share, now you want to stop. That's the final S. You want to actively stop discrimination as it walks in your path. So again, if Auntie Jenny says something at the Sunday dinner table that's inappropriate, you say, Auntie Jenny, we don't believe that. We don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate our word, less, L-E-S-S, we'll build a more fair and a more understanding world. And more importantly, we'll all be able to see the change that we want to see because less will become more. So again, continue to follow A Black Executive Perspective wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, on all the podcast platforms. You can also follow A Black Executive Perspective podcast on all our social channels of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at A Black Exec. For our fabulous, inspiring, powerful, and purposeful guest, president of Codem Magazine, Brad Boland. I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it. We learned about it. We strived about it, and we're going to thrive about it. We love you, and guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.